In the middle of the vast South Atlantic Ocean, far from any continent, flight path, or trade route, there lies a place so remote that it barely seems real. It's a tiny speck of volcanic rock surrounded by thousands of kilometers of open water. No airports, no nearby neighbors, and no quick way in or out. Yet against all odds, people live there. This is Tristan da Cunha, officially the most isolated inhabited place on Earth. A single settlement, called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, clings to a narrow patch of land beneath a towering volcano. Fewer than 250 people call it home. There are no tourists walking its streets, no flights bringing in goods, and no way to reach it except by sea on a week-long voyage from South Africa that only happens a handful of times each year. Life here is shaped by the ocean, the wind, and the constant uncertainty of isolation. It's a world where weather decides everything, whether fishing boats can launch, whether supplies will arrive, and sometimes whether communication with the outside world is even possible. The nearest inhabited island, St. Helena, is over 400 kilometers away. The coasts of South Africa and South America are even farther. To live here is to exist at the edge of human settlement, surrounded by nothing but ocean in every direction. Yet, for the people of Tristan, this isolation is not a punishment. It's a way of life they've chosen and protected for more than 2 centuries. They have built a community where everyone knows everyone else, where doors are never locked, and where survival depends not on wealth or technology, but on cooperation and resilience. But what makes a person choose to live in a place this remote? Why build a life on a volcanic island with no airport, no easy connection to the world, and constant risk from the sea and the sky? And how has this small settlement endured when so many others have disappeared from the map? This is the story of the most isolated town on Earth, a story of distance, determination, and the human need to belong, even at the edge of the world. In the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, far from any continent or commercial flight path, there exists a place so remote that it seems almost impossible people could live there at all. It is a volcanic island barely visible on most maps, and yet it is home to a small community that has quietly survived against all odds for more than 200 years. This is Tristan da Cunha, officially the most isolated inhabited settlement on Earth, a speck of land surrounded by thousands of kilometers of empty ocean. Its single town, called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, clings to a narrow patch of coastline at the base of a massive volcano. Fewer than 250 people live here, cut off from the rest of the world by geography, weather, and history. To understand why anyone lives here and why nobody else can, you have to understand what isolation really means. Tristan da Cunha is not just distant, it is profoundly unreachable. The nearest inhabited land is the island of St. Helena, itself a remote British territory, located roughly 400 kilometers to the north. The African continent lies nearly 800 kilometers to the east, while South America is more than 300 kilometers away to the west. There are no airports, no airstrips, and no cruise terminals. The only way to get there is by sea on a ship that leaves from Cape Town, South Africa, about 8 or 9 times a year. When the weather is calm, the trip takes around a week. When the seas turn rough, it can take much longer, and there is no guarantee that landing will even be possible once you arrive. The island rises abruptly from the deep ocean floor, forming the upper slopes of a giant shield volcano that extends thousands of meters below the surface. At its center stands Queen Mary's Peak, a snow-tipped summit reaching 0.62 meters above sea level. The peak dominates the island's landscape and dictates its weather, creating swirling cloud systems and fierce winds that sweep down the slopes toward the ocean. The island's coastline is almost entirely ringed by steep cliffs, some of them more than 600 meters high, that drop straight into the water. Waves from the Southern Ocean crash constantly against this natural wall, making nearly all of the island's perimeter inaccessible. Only one small patch of relatively flat ground exists on the northwestern side. a narrow coastal plain that serves as the only viable place for humans to live. It is here that the settlement of Edinburgh of the Seven Seas was built, and it remains the only inhabited area on the island. Tristan sits directly in the path of the Roaring Forties, the powerful westerly winds that sweep around the globe between 40 and 50 degrees south latitude. These winds are famous among sailors for their ferocity and unpredictability. They bring with them fast-moving weather systems that change by the hour: sunshine one moment, fog and rain the next. The ocean surrounding the island is cold and restless, with waves that can tower higher than the rooftops of the settlement's houses. The climate is technically mild, with temperatures rarely exceeding 25 degrees Celsius or dropping much below freezing, but it is perpetually damp and unpredictable. Sudden squalls can appear without warning, and thick fog often covers the entire island for days at a time. This environment has shaped everything about how people live here, from how they build their houses to how they grow food and launch their fishing boats. For the islanders, weather is not just a topic of small talk, it is the force that dictates the rhythm of daily life. Despite its harshness, the ocean is both the barrier and the lifeline for the people of Tristan. The waters surrounding the island are rich in nutrients carried by cold ocean currents from the Southern Ocean, supporting an unusually diverse marine ecosystem. These conditions make the area one of the best lobster habitats in the world. The Tristan rock lobster, sometimes called the crayfish, has become the island's main export and the foundation of its economy. Beyond the main island, the Tristan da Cunha archipelago includes 3 smaller islands: Inaccessible Island, Nightingale Island, and Go Island. Each is a world of its own. Inaccessible Island, as the name suggests, is almost impossible to reach. It is an extinct volcano surrounded by towering cliffs, and attempts to land there have often ended in shipwrecks. Because it has remained untouched by humans for so long, it is home to several unique species found nowhere else on Earth, including the world's smallest flightless bird, the inaccessible island rail. The entire island has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its pristine ecosystem. Nearby Nightingale Island is smaller but still significant. Though uninhabited, it plays an important role in Tristan's culture and traditions. Every year, groups of islanders travel there in longboats to collect seabird eggs, fish, and other resources in a practice that has continued for generations. It is also a vital breeding ground for seabirds like the great shearwater and the rockhopper penguin. Farther south lies Go Island, another World Heritage Site, and one of the least disturbed environments left on the planet. Only a small team of 6 scientists and technicians live there temporarily, maintaining a British Antarctic weather station. Together, these islands form one of the most remote archipelagos on Earth, and Tristan da Cunha stands at the heart of it. But the question remains, how did humans ever end up here in the first place? For centuries after its discovery, Tristan existed as little more than a footnote in maritime maps, marked as a distant curiosity rather than a destination. It was first sighted in 1506 by Portuguese explorer Tristão da Cunha, for whom the island is named. He never landed, likely because the weather and cliffs made it impossible. For more than 300 years afterward, the island remained uninhabited, visited only occasionally by whalers, seal hunters, and passing ships looking for fresh water. It was a lonely, dangerous landmark for sailors crossing the South Atlantic, a place to avoid rather than to explore. The first real attempt at settlement came from a man named Jonathan Lambert, an American from Massachusetts, who arrived in 1810 with a small group of companions. He declared himself the ruler of what he called the Islands of Refreshment and announced his ownership to the world through a letter published in a newspaper back home. But the venture was short-lived. Lambert and his men drowned in a boating accident 2 years later, leaving the island deserted once again. Permanent habitation began in 1816, under entirely different circumstances. Following the Napoleonic Wars, Britain feared that the exiled French emperor, Napoleon Bonaparte, who was imprisoned on St. Helena, might be rescued by a French or American ship, using Tristan as a staging ground. To prevent this, the British Navy annexed the island and established a small garrison there. The soldiers built simple huts on the northern plain and maintained a lookout for enemy ships. The mission, however, turned out to be unnecessary. Napoleon remained securely imprisoned until his death in 1821, and within a year of establishing the outpost, the British government ordered the garrison to withdraw. Yet one man chose to stay behind, a Scottish corporal named William Glass. Along with his wife, 2 children, and a few other settlers, Glass established what would become the permanent community of Tristan da Cunha. Over time, new inhabitants joined the group not through immigration programs or planned colonization, but mostly through accident. Shipwrecked sailors, whalers, and traders from different parts of the world washed up on Tristan's shores and decided to remain. Their backgrounds were diverse: British, Dutch, Italian, and American, but their shared isolation bound them together. Because women were scarce, the early settlers famously requested that passing ships bring wives from St. Helena. The result was a tiny but multicultural community built from a mixture of nationalities and languages. The settlement was small, self-reliant, and communal, with property shared and labor divided fairly among all residents. From these early beginnings emerged the 7 family names that still dominate Tristan da Cunha today: Glass, Green, Hagen, Lavarello, Repetto, Rogers, and Swain. By the late 1800s, the islanders had established a stable community of farmers and fishermen, trading occasionally with passing ships and supplying them with fresh meat, water, and vegetables. They developed their own local governance system, with an elected head of the settlement and a council that managed shared resources. Life was harsh, but it was also peaceful. The outside world seemed very far away, and that was exactly how the islanders preferred it. By the early 20th century, Tristan da Cunha was known to the British government mainly as a curiosity, a place that existed within the empire, but operated almost entirely on its own terms. The islanders lived without money, running a barter economy based on shared work and collective ownership. Ships stopped by only a few times a year, bringing mail, supplies, and news from the outside world. Then, in 1961, everything changed. The volcano that had defined the island's shape and soil reawakened. Tremors shook the ground, and thick clouds of ash darkened the sky. Lava began to flow dangerously close to the settlement, threatening to bury the potato fields and houses. With the eruption intensifying, the British Navy organized a full evacuation. All 264 inhabitants of Tristan da Cunha were taken first to the nearby uninhabited Nightingale Island and then to England. For the first time, the entire community left their home behind, unsure if they would ever return. When they arrived in Britain, the islanders became instant news. The media portrayed them as a living link to another century people who had never seen cities, television, or cars. They were given housing near Southampton, introduced to modern conveniences, and offered the chance to start new lives. But while the modern world fascinated them, it also overwhelmed them. They missed their home, their independence, and their sense of community. After 2 years in exile, when the volcano cooled and the island was declared safe, the majority voted to return. In 1963, most of the islanders boarded ships back to Tristan da Cunha, rebuilt their homes, and resumed life in the world's most remote town. That single decision to go back defined the character of the Tristanian people more than anything else. They had seen what the modern world had to offer and chose instead the solitude and simplicity of their volcanic home. Their return ensured that Tristan da Cunha would continue to exist not as a relic of the past, but as a living community that values independence above convenience. Life on Tristan da Cunha today is unlike anywhere else on Earth. In a world defined by instant communication, global trade, and digital connection, this small volcanic island remains a place where daily existence still revolves around nature, community, and survival. It is not a museum frozen in time, but it does operate on a rhythm that feels completely disconnected from the rest of the modern world. The settlement of Edinburgh of the Seven Seas sits at the foot of the volcano, a cluster of modest homes arranged neatly along a single main road. Each house is painted in bright colors that stand out against the gray cliffs and green pastures that surround it. There are no traffic lights, no commercial billboards, and no high-rise buildings. The population is small enough that everyone knows everyone else. With fewer than 250 residents, the entire town functions like an extended family. The people of Tristan call themselves Tristanians, and their community runs on cooperation and trust. The settlement is governed by an island council led by an administrator appointed by the British government and a chief islander elected by the local population. Decisions about fishing, farming, and public resources are made collectively. There is no political party system or campaign season. The community values consensus over competition, and disagreements are rare because everyone has a personal stake in keeping things stable. There is only one school on the island, St. Mary's, where all of the children, from kindergarten through secondary level, study under a handful of teachers. Subjects like math, science, and English are taught according to the British curriculum, and when students reach the age of 16, they usually continue their education abroad, often on St. Helena or in the United Kingdom. Sending children away is one of the most emotional aspects of island life. Many eventually return as adults to take up jobs in the local government, fishing company, or public services, while others settle permanently overseas. Education abroad ensures that the community remains connected to the outside world, even if it is separated by thousands of kilometers of ocean. Healthcare on Tristan da Cunha is provided by a small but functional hospital that serves the entire population. It is staffed by a resident doctor and a nurse who live on the island under contract. The hospital handles everyday medical needs, but for serious emergencies, patients must be evacuated by ship to Cape Town, a process that can take several days or even weeks depending on weather and sea conditions. Because of this delay, the islanders rely heavily on prevention and practical knowledge. Everyone learns basic first aid, and the community works collectively to support those who are ill or injured. The local economy is simple but efficient. It revolves almost entirely around the fishing industry, specifically the export of the Tristan rock lobster. The lobster is caught using small boats operated by local fishermen and processed in a modern facility near the settlement. The product is then frozen, packed, and shipped to international markets, particularly in Japan, the United States, and Europe, where it is sold as a premium delicacy. The profits from these exports are shared through the Tristan Development Company, which reinvests earnings into public services, infrastructure, and subsidies for imported goods. In this way, the lobster industry not only sustains the economy, but also funds the community's long-term survival. Beyond the formal economy, daily life on Tristan depends heavily on self-sufficiency. Every family maintains its own potato patch on communal farmland, known simply as the Patches. This area lies about 2 miles from the main settlement, accessible by a single road that cuts across the green plain. Each family grows potatoes, the staple food of the island, along with other vegetables like cabbages, carrots, and onions. Livestock such as cattle and sheep graze on open fields, and families share responsibility for tending them. Meat, milk, and eggs are all produced locally. With no supermarkets or supply chains, nearly everything people eat comes from their own labor. Hunting and fishing supplement the diet. Islanders catch fish along the coast, collect bird eggs from nearby islands, and occasionally hunt seabirds like the great shearwater, a practice rooted in centuries-old tradition. Food preparation remains communal as well. During celebrations, weddings, or holidays, large feasts are organized where everyone contributes and eats together. The community also shares the task of maintaining public infrastructure. There is one post office, one general store, a small cafe, a bakery, and the Albatross Bar, the island's only pub and social hub. Here, islanders gather in the evenings to talk, play darts, and share stories about the sea. The atmosphere is casual and familiar, with no sense of hurry or hierarchy. Everyone from the administrator to the fisherman drinks at the same counter. The store stocks imported essentials such as tea, sugar, canned goods, and fuel, which arrive by ship a few times a year. When supplies are delayed, people simply make do with what they have. Shortages are not uncommon, but the islanders have adapted to them through creativity and patience. The absence of modern convenience has also fostered a culture of repair and reuse. Nothing is wasted. Clothing is mended repeatedly, vehicles are maintained for decades, and scrap materials are repurposed for building or fishing gear. Skills like carpentry, metalwork, and mechanics are learned by necessity. Most residents are multi-skilled. A teacher might also be a farmer, a fisherman might also be a carpenter, and the doctor might help fix radios or generators. This versatility is essential in a place where outside help is rare and replacement parts are scarce. Electricity is generated locally through diesel generators that power the settlement's grid. Water comes from streams descending from the volcano, filtered and stored in communal tanks. Internet access exists but is limited by satellite connection speeds. There is one telephone line for international calls, though most communication with the outside world happens through email or radio. Television channels are received via satellite, and many islanders keep up with global news despite their isolation. Still, the internet is not central to life here. The islanders rely more on word of mouth, community announcements, and the bulletin board at the store for daily information. Religion plays a modest but steady role in the community. The Church of St. Mary and St. Joseph stands at the heart of the settlement and hosts regular services for both Anglican and Roman Catholic congregations. Weddings, baptisms, and funerals are community-wide events attended by everyone, regardless of denomination. These gatherings serve both religious and social purposes, reinforcing the sense of unity that holds the settlement together. Social life on Tristan is simple, but full of activity. Without commercial entertainment or nightlife, people spend time with family, work together on projects, and gather for events. Holidays are celebrated with music, food, and games. Sports such as football and cricket are popular, with the island maintaining its own small teams that compete among themselves. Radio Tristan, the local broadcast station, plays music, announces news, and reads public messages, a lifeline for the entire population. The lack of anonymity on Tristan might seem unusual to outsiders, but for the islanders, it provides a sense of comfort. Everyone's business is everyone's concern, but that also means no one is ever left alone in times of trouble. There is no crime to speak of. Doors are rarely locked, and car keys are often left in ignitions. In a place where everyone is related either by blood or marriage, trust is not optional, it's the foundation of the community. The legal system is minimal, with disputes settled informally by the island council. There are no police officers or lawyers, though the administrator has limited judicial authority for civil matters. Life here requires cooperation over confrontation. When problems arise, whether a broken generator, a sick animal, or a damaged boat, people come together to solve it as a group. The sense of mutual responsibility extends beyond practical matters. The elderly are cared for by younger generations, and no one lives in isolation despite the island's remoteness. This interdependence is what allows the settlement to function in such extreme conditions. But living on Tristan is not without challenges. The isolation that defines its charm also limits its opportunities. The entire community depends on a handful of ships per year for essential goods. When bad weather delays those shipments, shortages of fuel, medicine, or building materials can quickly become serious. Healthcare, as mentioned, is basic. Internet access, while present, is slow and unreliable, making online education or remote business difficult. The island's young people face limited career options, and many choose to leave permanently after studying abroad. As a result, the population is slowly aging. The government of Tristan da Cunha, under the supervision of the British Foreign Office, works to improve conditions through limited development projects. In recent years, solar panels have been introduced to supplement power generation, and new houses have been built with improved insulation against wind and rain. Scientific partnerships with environmental organizations help preserve the island's unique wildlife while ensuring sustainable fishing practices. Yet, even as modern conveniences creep in, the people of Tristan remain cautious about change. They understand that their strength lies in the balance between progress and preservation. Too much modernization could undermine the very culture that keeps them united. Visitors to Tristan da Cunha are few and far between. The island receives a small number of tourists each year, usually fewer than 100 who arrive by expedition ship or research vessel. There are no hotels, only a few guest houses run by local families. Tourism brings in a modest income, but is carefully managed to avoid disrupting the community's rhythm. Every visitor is required to obtain permission from the island council before arrival, and environmental guidelines are strictly enforced. The community's small size means that even one new family could dramatically alter the balance of resources, so permanent immigration is not permitted. Only essential workers such as teachers, doctors, or engineers are allowed to live on the island temporarily, usually for contracts lasting a year or two. Even marriage to a Tristanian does not guarantee residency, it must be approved by the council. This strict control is not hostility, it's necessity. The island's limited farmland, water, and energy supply cannot sustain more than a few hundred people. Growth is not the goal, preservation is. And that mindset explains why the island has remained so stable for so long. Living in the world's most isolated town requires a kind of adaptability that most modern societies have forgotten. On Tristan da Cunha, there are no daily commutes, no digital overload, and no rush hours. There is time to talk, to work together, and to rely on one another. The isolation that might seem unbearable to outsiders has become the community's greatest asset. It keeps life simple, predictable, and deeply human. The people who live here are not trapped, they have chosen this life. They could have stayed in England after the 1961 evacuation, but they came back to rebuild their settlement on the edge of the world. Their decision says more about human resilience and belonging than any technological achievement could. The story of Tristan da Cunha is not just about isolation. It is about endurance, adaptation, and the delicate balance between survival and progress. For more than 200 years, this small community has managed to thrive on a remote volcanic island thousands of kilometers from anywhere else, and yet its greatest challenge may still lie ahead. The world beyond Tristan is changing faster than ever. Globalization, climate change, and technological dependence are reshaping how humans live, communicate, and survive. But on this tiny island, change arrives slowly, if at all, and when it does, it has to be managed carefully. Too much modernization could overwhelm the fragile ecosystem and the equally fragile social structure that keeps the settlement functioning. Too little, and the island risks falling behind in a world that no longer waits. The people of Tristan da Cunha are fully aware of this balance. They have seen what happened to other small, isolated communities that opened too quickly to outside influence and lost their identity in the process. For them, progress has to serve a purpose. When the community debates whether to introduce a new technology, it does so through open discussion. Every resident has a voice, and decisions are based on what benefits everyone rather than what benefits individuals. This cautious, communal approach has helped maintain the island's independence while avoiding the social fragmentation that often accompanies modernization. Yet, the pressure from the outside world continues to grow. Climate change presents one of the most visible threats. The island's entire settlement lies close to sea level, protected only by a narrow strip of beach and a few man-made defenses. Rising ocean levels and increasingly violent storms have already begun to erode parts of the coastline. The volcanic soil, though fertile, is vulnerable to landslides and flooding when the rain becomes too heavy. Scientists working with the Tristan government are monitoring these changes closely, but resources are limited. Building permanent coastal defenses or relocating homes farther inland is possible in theory, but expensive and logistically challenging in practice. The same geography that gives the island its beauty also makes it vulnerable. The remoteness that protects it from human interference also prevents quick responses to natural disasters. Another growing concern is population decline. With fewer than 250 people, Tristan da Cunha's community is one of the smallest on the planet. The birth rate is low, and many young people who leave to study or work abroad do not return. As the older generation ages, the burden of maintaining the island's essential systems falls on fewer shoulders. The government of Tristan has tried to address this by encouraging skilled professionals to work temporarily on the island. But permanent immigration remains closed for practical reasons. The island cannot simply invite more people to live there. Its resources, food, housing, and energy are balanced precisely for its current population. Even a small increase could strain that balance and threaten the sustainability of the community. To the people who live there, the size of the population is not a problem to be solved, but a limit to be respected. The community's goal is not to expand, but to endure. Economic sustainability is another ongoing challenge. The lobster industry remains the backbone of the island's economy, but it depends on healthy marine ecosystems and consistent global demand. Climate fluctuations, overfishing elsewhere, and shifts in ocean currents could all threaten that stability. The island's government has partnered with conservation organizations to ensure that fishing remains sustainable, establishing strict quotas and monitoring programs to prevent depletion. Scientific research has become increasingly important, not just for preserving biodiversity, but for maintaining the very livelihood of the people. The Tristan Archipelago is one of the world's most important wildlife sanctuaries. Its surrounding waters form one of the largest marine protected areas on Earth, nearly 700,000 square kilometers, designated to preserve species found nowhere else. Albatrosses, penguins, seals, and countless seabirds depend on this region for breeding and feeding. Protecting these animals is both an environmental and economic necessity. If the ecosystem fails, the community's economy collapses with it. This awareness has made Tristan da Cunha a global example of how humans and nature can coexist in fragile balance. Despite its isolation, the island plays an active role in international conservation efforts. Scientific teams occasionally visit to study climate patterns, bird migrations, and marine life, often staying for months at a time due to the difficulty of travel. The islanders assist these researchers, providing logistical support and sharing generations of local knowledge about the land and sea. Their understanding of weather, wildlife behavior, and seasonal cycles is invaluable, passed down through experience rather than textbooks. For them, sustainability is not an abstract concept, it is a daily reality. Technological progress has reached Tristan da Cunha, but only in measured doses. Satellite internet has allowed residents to communicate more easily with family abroad and with government offices in the United Kingdom. Digital connectivity also supports education and emergency coordination, but it is still limited by bandwidth and cost. The island's leaders are cautious about introducing more advanced infrastructure that could disrupt traditional life. For instance, while some have proposed building a small airstrip to improve access, the majority of the community opposes it. They fear that easier travel would bring not just goods and visitors, but also dependency and risk. With ships coming less than 10 times a year, Tristan remains naturally protected from over-tourism and external pressure. The very difficulty of reaching it ensures that those who come must do so with purpose and respect. The island's isolation has become both its shield and its identity. Tourism, though limited, has found a small but sustainable niche. A few expedition vessels visit annually, bringing researchers and curious travelers. Visitors explore the settlement, hike the volcanic slopes, and observe the rich bird life on nearby islands. Every visitor is carefully registered, and all must follow strict environmental rules to avoid introducing diseases or invasive species. The revenue from tourism supports public projects such as road maintenance, education, and renewable energy experiments, but the community is determined to keep numbers small. They value preservation over profit. The island's sense of cultural identity is equally strong. Although part of the British Overseas Territories, Tristan da Cunha has developed its own dialect, traditions, and social customs that distinguish it from anywhere else. The local accent is a blend of Scottish, English, and South Atlantic influences, shaped by isolation and generations of intermarriage. Holidays and religious festivals are uniquely Tristanian, celebrated with a mix of British heritage and island customs. One of the most important events each year is the Queen's birthday, which combines a traditional feast with games, dances, and speeches that bring the entire community together. Other annual events include the sheep shearing, the harvest festival, and the longboat races that commemorate the island's maritime past. These gatherings are more than recreation, they are a reaffirmation of unity in a place where unity is survival. The people of Tristan measure wealth differently from the rest of the world. Success here is not counted in money, possessions, or digital followers. It is counted in health, cooperation, and self-sufficiency. If everyone is fed, housed, and cared for, then the community considers itself wealthy. The small scale of society allows problems to be solved through conversation rather than bureaucracy. There is no anonymity, no isolation within everyone's role matters. And that sense of purpose is what gives life meaning on this remote rock in the Atlantic. Yet, this kind of existence also raises philosophical questions about the future of human life in a connected world. Tristan da Cunha is both a relic and a preview. It shows what human society looked like before globalization, but also what it might need to look like again in the face of environmental and social collapse. Its isolation offers lessons about resilience, cooperation, and limits values that are often forgotten in industrialized societies driven by endless growth. In that sense, Tristan is not just the world's most isolated town, it is also one of its most important reminders. It shows that community can thrive without expansion, that stability can exist without constant progress, and that technology is most valuable when used to serve rather than dominate nature. Looking forward, the people of Tristan da Cunha continue to walk a careful line between preservation and change. They welcome scientific partnerships and carefully planned development, but they reject anything that threatens the island's autonomy or ecosystem. Their long-term vision is simple: to remain sustainable, self-reliant, and peaceful. Whether that can be achieved indefinitely depends not only on them, but also on the rest of the world. Climate change, overfishing, and pollution are problems that Tristan cannot solve alone, yet they are the first to feel the consequences. Rising sea levels, ocean acidification, and plastic waste carried by currents all reach even this distant shore. The irony is that Tristan da Cunha's isolation cannot protect it from the global issues it did not create. The island's future will depend on international cooperation and the commitment of larger nations to protect the planet's oceans and ecosystems. For now, the community continues to endure as it always has by working together, maintaining its traditions, and adapting quietly to each new challenge. The people here have weathered volcanic eruptions, storms, and the shifting tides of history. They have left and returned, rebuilt and reimagined their place in the world. They have proven that distance does not mean disconnection, and that isolation can be strength rather than weakness. In the end, Tristan da Cunha is not simply the most isolated settlement in the world. It is a living testament to what humanity can accomplish with cooperation, patience, and respect for nature. It stands as proof that civilization does not always need expansion, that survival can be achieved through balance, and that even at the edge of the world, people can build a complete and meaningful life. As the waves continue to crash against the island's cliffs and the winds roar endlessly across the Atlantic, the small town of Edinburgh of the Seven Seas remains where it has always been anchored to the land, guarded by the sea, and held together by the quiet determination of the people who call it home.